Hey guys, welcome to another episode of KoKo's World. It's your girl Carly, and I am so excited for today's episode. Even though it's a little bit bittersweet, we're going to be talking about my grief journey and how it has been already 2 months. Where I lost the most influential person in my life, and honestly, why I have been a little silent. We continued on with the show. I prolonged a couple episodes just to give myself some time, but I think I'm at a place where I may not really be ready to talk about it. I've rescheduled this podcast twice already, and I am so grateful for Michael because he is so understanding. This podcast is brought to you by MJW Photo Studio, a professional headshot and personal branding studio creating clean, high quality imagery for professionals and entrepreneurs. If you're ever interested in booking Michael for a professional headshot or company headshot, feel free to reach out at www.mjwphotos.com or through Instagram at mjwphotosclt. But I feel that this conversation is definitely needed because more people do not um, normalize the feelings, I guess, or talk about truly what you experience when you experience your first like true level of grief. April 1st, I got a text message from my father that said the family was needed at the hospital, and I had just got to work that day. And honestly, like my grandmother's health had been declining pretty rapidly. I think we were all hopeful and we all like were praying, and she definitely was a fighter. So I think that that's part of the reason why I'm so resilient is because she raised all of us to be that way. And this particular day, I had this like weird feeling of peace. I had recorded a couple of TikTok promotions that I had to do. I woke up extremely early without even needing an alarm this morning, got ready for work. I travel now for my job, so I had loaded up my bags. I had went for a walk with Shelby and Ava and Sargent, and got in the car like normal. I listened to praise and worship music that day, was riding down the road, talked to my dad. My dad was sharing that he kind of felt a little weary about leaving her the night before, but that the doctors had told him that if anything, was needed, they would notify him. And we get off the phone, and he was like, "Hey, I just got to the hospital. Hope you have a great day. I will see you this afternoon." And instead of me dancing that day, I was planning to go spend the afternoon with her. And not even 30 minutes, I get a text message and was like, "The family's needed at the hospital now." And the feeling in my gut was, you know, maybe she's in a coma and they're giving the whole family time to like have time with her before officially like pulling the plug. Um, but when I had to take a 45-minute drive to Eastleigh Baptist, I had seen an old colleague, and because she was at the hospital, one of the hospitals that I oversaw many years ago, and he hugged me and was like, I'm praying for your loved one. And I was like, thanks, she's a fighter, she's fine. And then I walked down the hallway, not knowing that, of course, he couldn't tell me, but he probably knew because my whole family was there. I turned the corner and, she had been called home. And that day was the day that, like, I feel my whole world shattered in front of me. Yeah. And so, I'm not here to talk about or really want sympathy. I know that a lot of people have reached out, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. If you know me, then you know my grandmother. Like any person that has ever been very important in my life, she's been, besides my parents, she's been the next person that I would be like, hey, you have to meet this person because she she is and she was my rock. Having I never realized how blessed I've been to have a grandmother for 31 years of my life. My mom, I never got to meet my mom's mom. My mom was also adopted. We talked about that in my mom's episode, but her three brothers were adopted. She knows that her three brothers are her biological brothers, but they do not really remember much about their mom. And her adoptive mother unfortunately passed away before I was born. So, my grandmother, Granny Carolyn, as most people know her as, she's the only grandmother I've ever known. And during my childhood, my parents were divorced. And so, they got divorced when I was 5, and I used to have to spend summers with my dad. And my dad was in between jobs. He's an engineer by trade, but if you know anything about corporate America, it's unstable. So every summer, she was like our daycare. And all of my girl cousins absolutely loved when summertime came because my family all kind of lived within a 10-mile radius of each other than a couple of us. And I lived all the way in Greer, South Carolina, which was an hour away from Easley. So I didn't get to see them much other than Christmas break and the summer break. And summer break was the most influential time of my life and many of my core memories because we would have slumber parties at my grandmother's house. And we had a strict weekly schedule. Like, we had Whataburger, I believe, on Thursdays. She would cook spaghetti on certain days. We would have baked beans and hot dog weenies with mashed potatoes, which I absolutely loved that meal down, and fried chicken on certain days. And, we knew on Fridays Aunt Connie was bringing a watermelon for all of us to cook or cut up and eat. And she taught me how to clean collard greens and like pick peas and the importance of being a lady because my mom was like very strict about me keeping my clothes clean, but I always wanted to be outside in the dirt for whatever odd reason. My grandmother's house did not grow grass, so it probably was because of us badass kids, to be honest. But so it was all just red clay mud, and my mom would be like, you better not get these shoes dirty. You better not get this, and this dirty. And my grandma would specifically go and buy me extra clothes just so that I could go outside and be a kid with all my other cousins that lived in Easley. And, my dad DJ'd, so he worked a lot of long nights. And he would promise me like, hey, I'm going to come back and pick you up, because I was a daddy's girl. And my grandma would be like, well, you don't have to. And I was always fine as long as she was the one keeping me. And even though he would promise me, like, Carly, I'm coming back, some nights I would want him to come back. But most nights I chose to spend the night because I knew the next morning she would cook my favorite breakfast, which was bologna and eggs. I haven't eaten bologna since I was like 12 years old. But when I was a kid, it was like the best thing, and her famous sweet tea in the community. And yeah, so when, so I say all this quickly to say, when I cut that corner, it was like 31 years of my life just played in my head, and it's kind of weird because you hear people talk about how when they have a event happen, or like in movies, you'll see like when an event happened, a person will flash back and see like 25 things. And I've always been like, they're just kind of showing you the trauma, but does that really happen in the brain? And for my first time, it happened to me, where I seen vivid things. I mean, the smell, just the aroma of the room, I felt it. And I ended up collapsing to the floor, and my dad and my bonus mom and my aunt circled around me, and they were like, Carly, it's gonna be okay. And I just needed to have one last conversation with her, And part of me feels guilty a little bit, and my family knows all of this, and obviously my therapist. I've been working really hard in therapy. I'm currently in grief therapy because I moved to Charlotte a year ago, and my grandmother, I always told my wife that I didn't want to leave until God called her home, because I wanted to be there with her. She always has just been there with all of us, and I don't know, like, she has 7 kids, so I knew she wasn't going to be left lonely. But for whatever reason, I thought that part of a flaw of mine is I am Captain Save-A-Ho for everybody. And part of my like heroism and feeling was that me being with her when she took her last breath, or, in a time of really needing someone, I would be able to be that. And earlier in the month of March, I stayed around. I was home for 3 weeks because she ended up having another heart attack, and she was in intensive ICU, and I was at the hospital as much as I possibly could be. And, when she came home, they told us that she was extremely weak, but that things would come around, right? And so I feel guilty because of the fact that I knew in my dad's voice that she wasn't okay. And my dad is a person where he always tries to play Mr. Strong. So he told me, like, oh yeah, you have tomorrow to spend time with her. And I had already rearranged, my other instructor to cover dance for that Wednesday. And I just knew, like, me and her were going to watch Family Feuds at the hospital, and we were going to talk, and I was going to have my conversation with her that I really needed to have, and that none of that happened, right? And if I can give one piece of advice, don't live for tomorrow, like, live for today, and trust your gut of knowing when that time is almost here that you need to be there. Work will wait, family things will wait, the dishes will wait, everything that's really not important can wait for another day. Spend that time with that person, get those conversations out, remind that person that you love them. And I know that she knows that I love her, and I know that she loves me. But also, I want her to also know, like, she did a job well done. There's 24 grandkids, 18 great grands. She got to meet the last great grand that was born the week that she was in the hospital for the heart attack. And I thought it was so noble because she was like on a BiPAP machine, and she had just had a heart attack and was very, very weak. Her oxygen would drop really quickly, and she was so concerned about my cousin and making sure that, she had coverage for her kids while she was having her other baby. And when the baby was born, she knew exactly, like, about how long it was before I needed to go check to make sure my cousin was okay. And I called my cousin. I was like, hey, like, are you up for company? Because grandma is very insistent about me coming to visit you, just to make sure you're okay. And she was like, yeah, like, I'm tired, but you can come up. And I stayed like 5 minutes, and I told her, grandma just wanted to make sure you were okay. And she was not letting me leave the hospital until she knew that you were okay. And she even asked her nurse, she was like, is it possible that you can just wheel me in a wheelchair to my granddaughter's room, because I need to make sure she's okay. And I thought that was just so noble, but also that was who she was. Like, she would give her last breath to make sure that all of us, her great grands, her grandkids, her kids, were okay, and to know that they were okay. And also to know that they were loved. The thing that I loved the most back in March, we had walked in, we were traveling, my wife and I and my daughter, and we had got to the hospital, and I had on like baggy pants and hoodie, you know, because that's how I travel. And my wife had on something like that too. And, you know, they had just opened up visitation, and we walk in the room, and she's weak, very, very weak. But somehow she got the strength to pull herself to the side of the bed, and she looked down at Shelby's shoes and looked up at her, and she was like, "Shelby, you look good today." And the nurse came in, and she was like, "Now, Miss Carolyn, who are these people?" And she was like, "They're my granddaughters. This is my granddaughter Shelby and my granddaughter Carly, and I just love them so much." And she was like, "Don't they look so cute?" And you know, things like that like stick with me because my daughter, my not my daughter, my wife's family doesn't really associate with us anymore. But when they were associating with us, it was often discussed about how Shelby looked, how she presented herself. You know, she has tattoos and just weird behavior. You know, she has a shaved back of her head. And my grandmother used to always talk to Shelby about, you know, not caring what people think, no matter if it's your family, you know, understanding that you should tune in to the people that do accept you and do love you. And she always reminded Shelby that no matter what happened, she would always have a home within my grandmother's home. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, she only said that because of Shelby's relationship with you." No, she meant that. And she was that to the community of Easley, South Carolina. She was the mother of the community. If you didn't have food, you knew that you could go to her house, the red brick house on the hill, and get you a sandwich. She would give advice. She would give unsolicited love. You know, she knew without needing to know when someone was hurting and someone was aching. And, you know, the last conversation her and I had, I was attending another funeral. So from January 1st to June, I have had 8 funerals in my family, which is crazy. Is just crazy. I thought people said they come in threes. Well, honey, mine has come in more than threes because I also have buried a dog, which we will talk about in a minute. But the last conversation I had with my grandmother, she looked at me and she was telling me, you know, how I looked so nice because I'd just come in from a funeral. And we were laughing, and she said, you know, "Well, where's Shelby?" And I said, "Well, she's, you know, at home in Charlotte. She couldn't come down for this event." And she was like, "Well, you know, you make sure that my girl is taken care of, and you make sure that no matter what life brings the two of you, that she knows that she's always welcome and loved within the Stokes family." And my grandma kind of has like I don't know what it would be, but like a spirit where she knows of things without really you having to tell her. And we used to call her a psychic. I wouldn't say that she's a psychic, but she's very in tune in the spiritual realm. And I looked at her and I said, you know, "Grandma, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I know that her family is estranged again because, you know, I just know." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "And I can tell the last time I seen Shelby at the hospital that she's hurting about it. And I want you to know that she doesn't have to hurt on her own because she has family that will go to bat for her, that loves her. And I'm not just saying that because of you. I'm saying that because that's genuinely how we feel about her." And, you know, I know that, Shelby, you're going to watch this, and I want you to also know that even though it's been a great loss for me, I know that it's been a great loss for you because you guys had a really, really strong connection. But I also want you to know that that connection isn't broken just because she's not here. My whole entire family, all of my aunts, my uncles, my dad, my mom, my mom, bonus dad, my extended family, you know, the big dude, Sean, etc., cousins, they all love you. And I also want to say that, you know, because of the legacy my grandmother developed within my family, I'm so grateful because no matter what, she always shared with us that family are not the people that we get to choose to have in our life. They're our family, like God puts them in our life for us to have a village. Some families have small villages, some families have big villages, and I'm grateful of our big village because she taught each and every one of us that we had a role in our family of how to show up and how to support one another. And she would often say, this person needs a little bit more support. Doesn't mean that I love this person more than I love you, but this person needs a little bit more support, or they need me to show up differently than you may need me to show up. And that's how my family operates just in general. We all know when that time is where we have to make a phone call to check in, or that person may need a hug, or we all need to meet up at grandma's house. And she would love those Sundays where we all would be at her house and would fill her whole entire house, 3-bedroom, well, it's really a 2-bedroom, but little baby house. It would get packed full with great-grands, grandkids, everyone. And she used to just say, like, this is what makes me happy, and this is what makes me feel that I lived a life, a fulfilled life. And so, we ended up having her funeral April 11th. And during those 11 days, I still worked. For whatever reason, I do better with not having to sit in stillness. Me having to sit here and talk to y'all and be vulnerable, it's uncomfortable. But I also know that that's part of KoKo's world, is I have to be honest and share how I'm feeling, because I never know who this may reach to help them get through their storm, whether that's grief or the loss of someone or whatever the case you're going through. And so the 11 days, I jotted down a couple things that I had learned and was processing. And I tried to process one thing each day and where those things came from. And so, obviously, I'm dealing with being the only child with my dad. My dad had lost his dad many years ago, but him losing his mom, they both were very significant to him. But, losing his mom, I've never experienced him losing a significant person in his life. So I didn't know how to really show up for him other than just let him know I was here and also be in silence. But also I realized that he didn't know how to be here for me because of my bond that I had with grandma and how traumatic it was. And yeah, so so I wrote this down in my journal of love and pain can exist in the same space. The depth of my grief is a reflection of the depth of my love. I wouldn't feel this much pain if I hadn't loved so deeply. I feel that both my dad and I did not really know how to sit with our grief, sit with our uncomfortability of just feeling uncomfortable. And a lot of times I would find we both would respond about things very much alike, like aggressive, coming off a place of anger, really not meaning to be angry or be mean to our significant others. My dad I felt sometimes he was a little mean to my stepmom, and I was a little mean to Shelby, and it wasn't anything that, and then sometimes we were mean to each other, my dad and I. And looking back at it, I'm like, none of that was from a place of wanting to be mean. It was just how deeply we were hurting internally. We really didn't know how to handle or transition that pain. The other one is grief has no timeline. The world may expect you to move on, but healing doesn't operate on a schedule. Some days feel lighter and some days feel like day one all over again. That is so true. I had 3 days of bereavement. I do not feel like that was enough, but I was grateful for those 3 days, and my company was very gracious of allowing me to work remote for 2 weeks, and that's what I did. But I do feel that I don't know when I will feel back my normal self. I'm trying. I've been showing up. Like I said, I'm in grief therapy. But I also have experienced a significant amount of grief just because my grandmother passed April 1st. My dog had a heart attack May 1st. And we unfortunately had to allow her to cross the Rainbow Bridge May 28th. And I've had Ava since I was a junior in college. So, once again, like when we allowed her to have the procedure at home and because of Sergeant, but quickly, just to share, when we made the final decision, my wife and I, and was like, we can't allow her to suffer anymore. I just felt like I was watching Ava from being a puppy all the way to the almost 11-year-old boxer that she was. And she had energy every day leading up to May 1st. And then May 1st, it was like, okay, Mom, my tank has ran out and my heart is struggling. And so I have found myself having high, very high, feeling really good days to really not so great days and not really having any type of motivation at all. And I'm a very much so type A person. So structure does well for me. I tried to put myself on a 30-day refresh, and y'all, I am in day, I think, 10, and it's not going so well for me. So I am having to learn that sitting with my pain is uncomfortable, but it's something that I'm going to have to do because unfortunately I can't run from this. And for so long, I've been really great at masking how I feel. I'm really good about just being like, oh, it'll get better tomorrow. And it has gotten better, but it's not something I can run from. So that is point number 2. People mean well, but not everyone understands. I've learned that support comes in many forms, and sometimes the people who show up aren't the ones I expected. That is very heavy. You know, if I'm going to be transparent with you, there are people that I thought would put the childish stupidity ways to the side and at least send a message of condolences, people that I know without a shadow of a doubt we would be there for if something significant like losing a very influential person in your life, or even losing a dog. I mean, my dogs are my children, Sergeant and Ava. And with the loss of Ava, it feels as if our home is not the same. Our dog cries every single night at 9:30 on the dot. And myself, Shelby, and Khalees are trying to figure out what the new normal looks like because of this being with us for the past almost 11 years, and now she's not with us anymore. And so, one significant person or group of people that I know that they don't care, but that I just felt that we were deeper than this and we are family, are Shelby's family. Shelby's parents decided for whatever reason to not even send a simple condolences. A simple hey, I actually give a fuck about you. Nothing. When it came to my grandmother and when it came to our dog. And some things, the statement people means well, but not everyone understands. I genuinely feel, because of the person I am, I do feel that maybe they wanted to. Maybe they didn't know how to reach out because of the estranged relationship. But I want you all to know, listening to me right now, my grandmother was the most important person in my life. And my sister didn't show up to her funeral. That hurt me to my core. That is something that I'm having to accept, but also figure out what life looks like for the two of us moving forward, because it was not excusable for her. But at least she did give her condolences, and she did call me right after the funeral and all the things. And I also have accepted that sometimes emotionally that may be a space that's too uncomfortable for her to sit in. But for people that knew how much she meant to me, and I can promise you that if something happened in you all's family, you would want the same respect, or if not more. It's inexcusable. And yeah, it's hard to go back from here. And I will be honest with you, that's the point of KoKo's World, because once I say things on my podcast, it's law for me, because I know that I can't go back from it. And I'm just really, really, really disgusted. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm very grateful for my brother-in-law and his family. They were more than supportive, and I thank you guys so, so, so very much. And I thank y'all for being there for Shelby, for the loss of my grandmother, and also the loss of Ava. I had so many people that reached out, and I want to emphasize here, I'm beyond grateful for every person that has reached out, sent condolences, sent flowers, sent their love. And I know some people, I did not have the strength to physically be able to respond, because I physically did not know the words of how to even articulate my feelings at that time. But for you all, I'm so grateful. But the people that I really thought, once again, would not let me down, they let me down. And yeah, grief is physical, not just emotional. It can make your body feel heavy, your mind exhausted, and your heart ache in ways you never imagined. This is so valid. This is so valid. And yeah. Memories can heal and hurt at the same time. This is so true. A photo, a song, a scent, or a simple moment can bring both tears and gratitude in the same breath. We, of course, had to go through 1,000 video or photos because of putting together her slideshow for the funeral. And the same went for Ava, because, you know, we had did a little tribute for her. And, you know, you laugh, you know, because you can remember those moments. Or for my grandmother, it was very healing to see positive photos with myself and my sister and my mom and my dad, because they separated when I was 3 or 4. So I do not remember my parents ever being in a healthy type of environment. And to see them when I was a baby and toddler, like how cute our little family was once upon a time. It was just, it was beautiful to see. But also, you know, seeing some of my grandmother's pictures that were black and white and back in the day was so amazing as well. And it's just, it brought in a lot of warmth. And also it healed a lot of things and answered some questions for some people in my family who were like, oh my gosh, I didn't remember this, or I didn't know this. And then my aunts would share stories about X, Y, and Z. And it was a beautiful way for my family to come together, and another way to bond. Strength doesn't mean holding it all together. This is the one that I struggle with daily, even past the funeral service. Some of my strongest moments have been the ones where I allow myself to cry, ask for help, and admit I wasn't okay or that I'm not okay. I struggle with this, and it's so funny because Khalees and Shelby both know how I operate. And Shelby has realized that I've started this pattern that some nights I'll turn on the show Touched by an Angel. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It is really, really good. But it is the show that kind of brings me peace whenever my mind is racing or my heart just feels very heavy, and I'm not an overly emotional person. So when I am trying to express myself, sometimes my body will not allow me to cry for whatever reason. So I watch A Touch by an Angel, and it brings me a sense of peace because I'm like, well, maybe one day my grandmother will come back as an angel for me and we can have a whole conversation and yada, yada, yada. So that has been really good. Loss changes you. Yes, it does. You don't return to who you were before grief. You learn to carry your loss while becoming someone new. That is so true. And I'm having to sit with who this new person is without being afraid. People say they love change until you experience significant change and you're like, okay, Carly, who is this new person? Joy is not betrayal. This is the one that hits me often. Laughing again, smiling again, and living again doesn't mean I've forgotten. It means I'm learning how to honor life while carrying loss. A lot of big things in my life, she would be the first person that I would call to tell. When I graduated college, obviously my grandmother did not drive. I would take her to her doctor's appointments and we would run errands together. And it was something that I took pleasure in as soon as I started driving, like 15, 16-year-old me. The days, especially my senior year of high school, she would schedule all her doctor's appointments in the afternoon so that I could get out of school at 12 and go pick her up, and her and my Uncle Mike, and drive them to the doctor's office, two different things, and we would just have the best time. And she would always laugh because I needed Jesus food, which was Chick-fil-A, and her and my Uncle Mike would get Bojangles or KFC, and we would eat lunch or dinner together, and then I would drive back to school or home. And I will attach one of my last doctor's appointment visits that I took her with, and we're talking about sweeties, which that's what she would call boyfriends, and so it's the cutest thing, and I will attach it here. But yeah, I've struggled with feeling joy because even though I know that she would want all of us to be happy and be joyful, I just feel that she's not here to enjoy the stories or the memories or the life updates. And on Wednesdays, I would give her a call and we would talk every single Wednesday, and I would talk about all of my life updates. And I remember when I officially moved to Charlotte, my dad was like, "Are you going to tell Mama?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I think I need to tell her in person versus over the phone," because I knew that she would worry about me. And when we were on the phone one Wednesday, she said, "I think a little birdie told me that you live in a different state." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Do you live in Charlotte now?" I said, "Yes, Grandma, I live in Charlotte." And we both busted out laughing, and she was like, "Now, don't you go out there being fast." I said, "Ma'am, I am a married woman." She says, "Well, I'm just saying, don't you go out there being fast." So it was just little cute things like that where I feel that, I won't be able to give her those life updates anymore. Healing isn't linear. There are good days, hard days, and unexpected days. Progress doesn't always move forward in a straight line. That is true. I have not felt so all over the place in a very long time. I usually am a very structured person, and I need structure to function. And lately, I have not been able to grasp on to that structure. So I am working on that. The people we love never truly leave us. They live on in our memories, our traditions, our lessons, our laughter, and the part of us they help shape. Their presence may change, but their impact remains forever. And that's where I want to leave you guys today. I want you all to know that as I have had to navigate this significant loss, I also have to remember that I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for my grandmother. I would not be able to be the mother that I am today if it wasn't for 20-year-old Carly getting an 8-week-old puppy, not really knowing what to do, but doing it, and knowing that if I can raise a dog who can't even speak my language, I definitely can take the risk of trying to raise an 11-year-old human that actually can talk to me and that can tell me if she likes something or not, or if her stomach hurts and she's not just vomiting just to be vomiting, and then me having to ask ChatGPT what's going on. So Ava gave me the belief in myself to be able to be the mother that I am today. And my grandmother shaped me to be from being the young girl or the young kid that she raised me as an infant all the way up to being the 31-year-old woman that I am today, who knows what I will and what I will not accept in a partner, who knows how to treat people, because she used to always say, it doesn't cost you a dime to be nice. And knowing how to allow people to be where they're at, because she would always say, well, Carly, at the end of the day, you handed your hand out, and if they didn't meet you in the middle, you walk away, but know that you did give them the chance. And I know how to cook collard greens, and I know how to make black eyed peas for New Year's traditions, and I know what true togetherness means when it comes to family and unconditional love, because that's what she's taught each and every one of us, that, we show up, we may disagree, we may not agree with what the choices a person made, but you show up for them and you let them know that you're in their corner. And then in private, you let them know how you didn't agree with X, Y, and Z, but you're still going to stand 10 toes down for them. And so I just want to close with two things.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear monkey. Happy birthday to you from Uncle Mike and Granny Carolyn. Goodbye, monkey. Hope you have a good day, monkey.
It hasn't changed me. It has just reshaped me a little. It has taught me that life is fragile, love is powerful, and tomorrow is never promised. It has shown me parts of myself I didn't know existed. The part that can endure heartbreak, keep showing up, and continue loving even after loss. There are still days when the weight feels very heavy. There are still moments when a memory catches me off guard and brings tears to my eyes. Or a song that I'm listening to, and that song reminds me of her, my grandmother or Ava, and I immediately can smell them, and I can remember a moment where that song was playing and we were together. But I've learned that grief isn't something we get over, it's something we learn to carry. And in carrying it, we discover just how strong we really are. To anyone listening who is grieving, a parent, a grandparent, a child, a pet, a friend, a relationship, or even the version of yourself you once were, I want you to know that your grief is valid, your tears are valid, your healing is valid. And most importantly, the time that it takes you to process the things that you're processing is valid. I want you to give yourself permission to feel it all: the sadness, the anger, the confusion, the love, the questions you may ask of why did this have to happen too soon? Because grief is not a sign that you're broken, it's a sign that something matters. Today, I choose to honor the people I've lost, not by staying stuck in the pain, but by continuing to live in a way that would make them proud. I would carry their lessons, I would carry their love, and I would carry their memory forever. The weight of grief may never completely disappear, but neither will the love that created it. And for that, I am grateful. And I'm able to sit here today to share with you all my testimony and my story because of how grateful of a life that I was able to experience with having my grandmother in it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, give yourself grace, and remember, healing doesn't mean letting go of the people who we love. It means learning to move forward while carrying them with us. Thank you for joining me in today's journey.